Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Ben. My name is Ben, and I'm your friend. Live stream, hello to you too. I'm excited about today's topic because I imagine all of you have heard of ketosis, and there's a lot of misconceptions around this diet. And we're going to learn that it's actually not a diet. It's an amazing metabolic process and what Dr. Pompa would call an ancient healing strategy. So we're going to talk about the innate intelligence and how to harness it with ketosis. So I'm excited to be with you today. First things first, we got to honor the goat. Round of applause for the goat right here. Right there. Yesterday morning when I saw Pompa in the room here, I said, "Oh, the goat's in the building," and he made a weird goat sound. And I said, "That's not what goat means. It means greatest of all time." I know that you knew that, but I'm just so grateful and blessed to be with you today. I don't take this lightly. It's an honor and a privilege. So thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me to serve you today. And let's get right into this. We know some of these stats. They are alarming, to say the least. 1 out of 3 women are diagnosed with cancer. For men, 1 in 2. 60% of American adults are diabetic or pre-diabetic. We know that's much higher. People are not testing these days. It's probably 80% plus. And then in about 10 years from now, we know that 1 in 2 children are going to be born on the autism spectrum, according to their projections. We've got a problem. Harvard put this article out. They predict by the year 2030, which is just a few years away, 1 in 2, or 50% of American adults will be classified as obese. Not just overweight, but actually obese. So why is disease on the rise? Were we just born to have disease and sickness? Did God create us broken? Or is it something else? When we look at hospitals, have you ever been in a hospital? This is what, you know that, right? The nurse who just shared, you know that. When you think about the food given to hospital patients, for example, let's say somebody going through chemotherapy for cancer. They're in the hospital because of cancer, inflammation, multifactorial. Would you say the same food that's given to them in the hospital bed as they go through chemotherapy is the same food that could contribute to cancer growth? Yes. And what about fast food restaurants and hospitals, right? McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. Doctors are taking breaks from treating patients to go and have fast food. Patients are taking breaks from treatment to go and have fast food. Why are they even allowing fast food restaurants in hospitals? Well, we know that this is a big problem. The food compass came out from Tufts University. So let's go over this real quick. When we see, let me use this little laser here. The items in green, they say to be encouraged, in yellow to be moderated, and in red to be minimized. So they say, yeah, and you could have kale, watermelon, frosted mini wheats, give that to your family. Non-fat, frozen yogurt, orange juice, it has to have the calcium, Honey Nut Cheerios, and then let's go to the yellow. Lucky Charms, skinless chicken breast, but let's go down here in red. Eggs and butter, minimize that, right? Cheddar cheese and ground beef, right? Minimize that. But this is interesting because they say eggs and butter is red, but we have Lucky Charms above here, orange juice above here. So what I always say when people ask me, how do you cut through all the noise in the diet industry? And Olivia's going to talk about this. But I always say this, very simple. Look at what the government is promoting. The Food Compass from Tufts University, the My Food Plate, what mainstream media tells you what you should be eating. Pay real close attention to it and then just do the complete opposite. And you're probably going to be healthy. Just like this, flip it around and you're probably going to be healthy. Because human beings are the only species smart enough to create their own food and dumb enough to actually eat it. And the truth of the matter is that a cured patient is a lost customer, right? I always say this, and we got to really get this message to our patients and clients. If you treat your health casually, you will end up a casualty. We got to take ownership. And this is coming from somebody who was treating his life casually. If you know my story, obese physically, obese mentally, meaning I was depressed, I was suicidal, followed a standard American diet, addicted to video games and drugs and sugar and alcohol and toxic environment. And my life was headed down a destructive path. But I made a decision And all it takes is one committed decision, and I changed my life. And that's what we want to do for our patients and clients. By the way, I have a lot of slides, and Pompa always makes fun of me for these slides, but I will get through them without rushing. However, you might miss a couple things with your photos, so I would love to give you my slides if you just email me, support@ketokamp.com. Kamp is spelled with a K, support@ketokamp.com, and just say, live it to lead it slides, and my assistant will get you the whole slide deck. So let's talk real quick about the symptoms that are manifesting in our patients and clients, and then the root cause, what's actually causing it. Imagine this scenario. Let's say somebody came to the conference, and last night they went out and they said, I'm going to feast. So they had an entire pizza, an entire pineapple, 2 slices of cheesecake, spaghetti and meatballs, 200 prunes, 50 strawberries, a pound of cheese, and they're like, I want some good gut bacteria. I'm going to throw in some sauerkraut. They wake up this morning, and they have a lot of symptoms. Obviously, right? Thank you, Nancy. They have acid reflux, gas, bloating, indigestion, a lot of symptoms. So what does the average person do? They make an appointment with their doctor, and they start explaining all these symptoms. I'm dealing with this, and the doctor is listening to them, the conventional doctor, not us. And the doctor's like, no worries. Here's a prescription for an antacid, anti-flatulence, and 5 other medications. And they go and take it, and they feel a little bit better that day. But what if the doctor would have just said, what did you eat? It's like, don't do that again, right? Because are those symptoms the actual problem? Yes or no? No. Or are they actually gifts and feedback mechanisms from this amazing human body, the innate intelligence, showing you something is out of homeostasis? Symptoms are a gift from the innate intelligence. It's your body's check engine light. If you're on a road trip and your check engine light gets turned on, thank God we have that ability to see that, because we could pull the car over, open up the hood, and fix what's actually causing the problem instead of masking and keep driving on that road. That would be problematic. That's why I love this quote from Einstein. He said, intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. Raise your hand if you're a genius. All of you should be raising your hand. You're here at Live It to Lead It. You got to be a genius to be here. I love this quote too, because a lot of what we've been taught, we need to unlearn and relearn. And this is the quote: the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and then relearn. How many of you can relate to this? Your traditional training, you had to unlearn it and relearn it, right? I'm constantly doing this myself. 2 types of people out there. This is what we're dealing with. The 97% of the population, which is a long line of people looking for shortcuts. They're looking for shots, surgeries, toxic pills, fad diets, and they're just chasing symptoms. Instead of living 70 years on planet Earth, they live 1 year 70 times. They're unhappy, they're unhealthy, and we want to reach those people, obviously. We want to wake them up. But then we have you all, the 3%ers, who understand cause and effect. Somebody who's a 3%er gets diagnosed with a terminal illness. Their doctor says, hey, you have terminal cancer, you have 5 months to live. And that 3%er thinks, no, your ability to help me is terminal, and they go on to heal themselves. Amen, right? A 3%er understands that my body was built to heal itself. A 3%er understands that, hey, you are a masterpiece because you're all pieces of the master, right? You're built to thrive. And they do whatever it takes. But it's just a decision. Like when I saw Pompa speak in Boca, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I made that decision that I want to learn everything he knows and I want him to teach it to me, right? And you all have that opportunity today to make that decision and meet with David. It's really just a committed decision, but there's a big difference between being interested and being committed. When you're interested, you do it when it's convenient, and you give up whenever things get tough. When you're committed, you find a way. Write this down in your notes. Creativity follows commitment. I didn't have the funds, the resources. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but creativity followed my committed decision. So we want to flip this around, right? We want to make 97% of the population geniuses, those who are changing their lifestyle. Now, the innate intelligence, we've heard of this term. And it's this, you all know, it's the wisdom within the human body. It's put in the human body to heal, to thrive. But where is it? Is it in your DNA nucleus? For many, many years, we thought, a lot of scientists and doctors believe that if you got cancer that runs in your family, heart disease, it's just a matter of time before you get it. You're doomed by your genetics. But how many of you know Dr. Bruce Lipton? Raise your hand. Yeah, he came on the scene and he's like, let's challenge that premise that our genes are our destiny. So what he did, and he's a cell biologist. He wrote a great book called Biology of Belief. I interviewed him on my podcast, Keto Kamp podcast, one of my favorite interviews. And he said, well, he did studies, and he said, okay, if the intelligence is in the cell, let's remove the DNA nucleus and see what happens when we remove it. So he removed it, and the cell went on to function for 2 months, sometimes even longer, before it went rogue and went into apoptosis. 2 months or longer, showing him that maybe it's not the DNA running the show. So what is it? Dr. Pompa spoke about it yesterday. The cell membrane, right? The lipid bilayer made up of bad words, protein, saturated fat, and cholesterol. And that's what you're made of. It's the bodyguard of the cell. As he mentioned yesterday so brilliantly, good things get in, bad things go out. It communicates with your DNA nucleus. He removed, Dr. Bruce Lipton would remove the cell membrane, instant death, remove instant death. The membrane is the key. That's where the innate intelligence is. The membrane communicates with your DNA, and it's an epigenetics response, which we're going to get into right now. So he calls it the membrane because it's the intelligence. It has those receptor sites that Dr. Pompa drew. Actually, they're right here. And there's about 30,000 of them on one single cell, 30 to 70 trillion cells. It's really incredible. But here's how epigenetics works in a nutshell. Environmental stimulus, good or bad, binds to the cell membrane. Chemical reaction is inside the cell, reaches the nucleus, that DNA nucleus, and then a gene becomes expressed as a protein. This could be good or this could be bad. Depends on what that environmental stimulus is. So we know that there's a study that came out that shows that toxins actually could create a negative environmental stimulus to turn on bad genes. Pompa has spoken about this before. And here's a study showing 2 genetically identical mice. How can one be small and another fat? Here's what they found. One suspected trigger is a chemical found in many plastic drink bottles, including baby bottles called BPA. In one particular notable study, scientist Randy Girdle and his group of researchers exposed pregnant mice to BPA and watched as more of their genetically identical progeny developed into yellow, obese mice than would normally be expected. DNA methylation at the agouti gene sites was decreased by 31%. It was a gene that triggered that, epigenetics. And Dr. Bruce Lipton believes disease, including cancer, autoimmune, every disease out there, 99% of it is epigenetics. Only 1% is strictly genetics, your genes. So think of your genes as a Christmas tree, right? You could turn on the lights, turn down the lights, and the membrane is what's going to determine which genes get turned on and turned off. And Dr. Rafael Gonzalez could give you a brilliant masterclass on that. So if you want to get well, you got to fix the cell. We know that, so let's get into ketosis and how ketones could actually really help the membrane and also the mitochondria. As Jason Saunders did so masterfully yesterday, he pointed out the importance of the mitochondria, and what it does is not just an energy power plant, but also all the different functions, and so did Sonia with her cell danger response. It's really important. And we know that, yes, it's a factory within your cells that takes energy and produces ATP energy, but it's much more than that. As Sonia mentioned yesterday, there's also an intelligence within your mitochondria, and there's a membrane around the mitochondria, and it's a surveillance system to identify cellular threats, right? And if there's too much stress, physical, chemical, emotional, then in order, let me ask you this question. What's the number one priority for the human body? Yeah, so smart. The number one priority for the human body is survival. So when there's too many threats, the mitochondria will shut down energy production, all for the sake of what? Survival, right? This is chronic fatigue, it's long COVID, it's a whole host of other symptoms. Even diabetes is actually a mitochondrial issue. Almost every disease out there is a mitochondrial issue. And if your stress bucket is too full, you're going to have mitochondria that are going into the cell danger response. Dr. Robert Navio is a good person to study if you want to learn more about the cell danger response. So let's talk about this. How do ketones support this? We know that it's estimated by age 70, 70% of your mitochondria is lost. That's for those who are not doing what we do here. This is the 97% of the population. And how do you eliminate these cellular threats with ancient healing strategies? Well, ketosis is one of them. Let's get into that. Ketosis, just like the lymphatic system that Caitlin mentioned yesterday, hits on all three of these legs, and we're going to kind of get into that. But let me ask you this question. Which car would you prefer?
I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah. I should have put that car there. I don't even know if that's it.
Depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Yeah, seriously. Well, and the reason I say that is because when you look at the electron transport chain, which is how your body creates energy, glucose will get you about 32 to 36 ATP units, which is energy. Ketones get you 120 to 160, about 400% more energy from your mitochondria. How does it do that? Jason spoke about this yesterday. Because of a process called mitogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria, which is our number 3, restoring cellular energy. So you have a situation when your body is in ketosis, ketones are signaling to your mitochondria, because it's actually, ketosis is a stressful environment. Your body thinks you're going through starvation, and it starts to create mitochondria that are more robust and duplicate those mitochondria, create more energy, which is restoring cellular energy. Not only that, when your cells are not in ketosis, when we have somebody who's just burning sugar, 97% of the population, it creates a lot of reactive oxygen species, a lot of free radicals. It's like having one firefighter to take care of an entire building that's on fire. There's no way this firefighter could keep up with it. There's no way your cells could keep up with the free radicals. Oh, sorry. Free radicals from glucose. But when you're in ketosis, it's like having a fleet of firefighters on hand 24/7 to put out any fires. So I put 4 studies there that show what ketones could do to lower free radicals, extend lifespan. Those are some really cool studies if you want to look them up. And there's so many studies on PubMed that show what the benefits of ketones could do. Just type in ketones and whatever condition you're searching, and this is a big reason why. There's also something else that's happening, and I learned this analogy from Dr. Stephen Gundry. He shared on my Keto Kamp podcast. It's a great analogy. When your cells are in ketosis, when your body's in ketosis and your cells are using ketones, it signals something called mitochondrial uncoupling. The analogy is this. If you use a pressure cooker, you have all this steam built up in the pressure cooker, right? But then you have these release valves to get rid of the excess steam. It's kind of what's happening with your mitochondria. So you have a situation where you're producing more energy and you're producing less free radicals. It's a win-win. That's why people feel so good when they're in ketosis, especially the mitochondria in the brain. It's like your brain gets turned on, especially as you get keto adapted. So this goes to R4, reduce inflammation and oxidative stress in the cell. You can see how ketones are hitting a lot of the 5 R's here. Now, who do you want protecting your cells? McLovin from Superbad or the secret surface for ketones, right? So that's, your cells are far more protected. Thank you, Nancy, for laughing. When you're in ketosis. And also for detox purposes, it'll burn cleaner, which is great for detox. That's why Pompa uses in Pompa program. That's why I learned it from him. When you're going to do detox, you want to start off getting that person fat adapted and in ketosis. All right, that's why I call it Ketopia, and you can see my shirt there. All those studies are showing it raises glutathione, protects your DNA, reduces inflammation, protects the mitochondria inner membrane. We spoke about that a little while ago. Cellular energy is increased, more metabolically efficient, cleaner energy. And it turns on the SIRT1 gene, as Jason mentioned yesterday, that protects your DNA, protects the telomeres, and it helps you live longer, which is all good things. We know that babies that are born into this world are breastfed. Like Isaac is in ketosis. Jessica's baby is in ketosis. Andrea's baby is in ketosis because breast milk has saturated fat and cholesterol, which actually helps the development of that baby's brain, helps the baby go into ketosis. Yes, there's sugar in breast milk. The baby is so efficient at metabolizing the sugar, it actually goes in and out of ketosis. The baby is keto flexing. It's super cool. And we're designed to burn fat. It's our primal birthright. But then what happens? Most babies are weaned off, high sugar formula, eating every 2 to 3 hours, and then we lost this ability to burn fat. Ketones are high octane brain fuel. Throughout much of human evolution, ketosis likely served as a valuable survival mechanism to fuel brain metabolism during times of food scarcity. Hence, in some ways, the modern diet, aka the standard American diet, can be considered keto deficient. Before I get to my next slide, it's a study I'm going to show you, and Mindy can't answer this because I know Mindy knows the answer. There was a study done by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 2018. This is a 10-year study looking at over 8,000 people. Their goal was to assess how healthy or how unhealthy are American adults. So they looked at blood pressure, BMI, are they on medication, off medication, several different metrics for health. What percentage of the American adult population did they find being unhealthy? What do you think? Somebody said 100? Who said 88? Yeah, you nailed it. 88%. Meaning only 12% they found of the American adult population was classified as healthy. Now, this was before COVID. You think it got better or worse? Definitely got worse, right? I'm going to rewrite this headline and say 88% of American adults are in a keto deficiency. Like, if they would have gotten these individuals into ketosis, as you get your patients and clients into ketosis, it'll really put a dent into this, because we know it lowers insulin, it lowers inflammation, helps the mitochondria. There's so many incredible benefits when keto is done right, and I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it shortly. So keto is not a fad diet. It's nothing new about keto. It's just nuanced or new to somebody, but ketosis is a metabolic process. So let's say that together. Ketosis is a metabolic process. That's all it is. It's been around for as long as humans have existed. As a matter of fact, thank God for this process, because we wouldn't exist today. When our ancestors had to fast, famine, there was no food available, they had to have the ability to burn body fat and have that liver produce ketones to give the brain a different fuel source. Otherwise, they would be just blubbering idiots, and they wouldn't have been able to hunt and kill, and we would have died. We would have perished. So this is the reason we exist today. It's one of the reasons we exist today. The real fad diet is the standard American diet. That's new. Keto is not new. So let's talk about why keto isn't working for your patients or your clients and how to do it the right way. How many of you know Dr. Kate Shanahan? Wow. Only a few of you. Interesting. Well, she's a medical doctor. She wrote a fantastic book called Deep Nutrition. It's a classic. Go read it or listen to it on Audible. She was actually the nutritionist for the Los Angeles Lakers when Kobe Bryant used to play. I've interviewed her 3 times now on my podcast. She's a dear friend of mine now. And I asked her this question just a couple weeks ago, actually. I said, hey, 3 scenarios, Dr. K. Shanahan, which one is worse? Scenario number 1, somebody smokes cigarettes every single day. Scenario number 2, somebody eats processed sugar every day. Scenario number 3, somebody eats seed oils every day, vegetable oils. I asked her, which one is worse? What do you think? Y'all are smart, that's why. Well, she said this. She said, Ben, that is an easy question. She said, it's the seed oils. Duh. She said, yeah, smoking's not good for you, but that last puff, after you're done, damage is done. Eating a whole bunch of sugar is not good for you, but what can you do? You can exercise, you can do some squats, you could use it for energy. She said seed oils stay in your body fat for 2 to 5 years. Meaning, if you remove them today, half-life is 2 years later, half of them will still be in your body fat, disrupting your mitochondria, damaging your health. And I don't think I have time to play this, so don't worry about playing this video because I want to get through my slides. But I recommend everybody go on YouTube and type in how canola oil is made. Show this to your patients. If you haven't watched it, yeah, it's disgusting. Watch it. How canola oil is made is YouTube, which is one of the seed oils, but I'm not going to play it now. I'm going to show you some studies on why they're so damaging. So they're called polyunsaturated fatty acids, poly meaning many. These fats, the chemical structure, contain many double bonds in the chemical structure. So the more double bonds that are closely located to each other in these chemical structure here of these fats, the more aggressive it attracts oxygen. When it attracts oxygen, it oxidizes. Was it Jason that showed the apple? I think that he turns brown. That's kind of what's happening at the cellular level when you consume these bad fats. So this study was showing that PUFAs, and Dr. Kate says PUFAs go poof because they oxidize. It's a great way to remember that. Persistent oxidative stress, often involving enhanced peroxidation of PUFAs in the cell membranes, are known to enhance the development of malignant diseases. Thus, the carcinogenic process could be initiated and or accelerated by lipid peroxidation, induced DNA and protein damage. This one showed linoleic acid, which is these seed oils, created endothelial dysfunction and inflammatory marker expression. It also asserts that diabetics have more linoleic acid in their LDL particles than non-diabetics. This one showed what it did. Corn oil induced changes to cardiac fatty acids and causes early diastolic dysfunction without altering systolic function. This is a cool study looking at how the mitochondria uses different fats as energy sources. I recommend you go check this study out. So they gave the mitochondria PUFAs, monounsaturated fats, saturated fats, and it essentially showed, I'm kind of paraphrasing at the bottom there, but the mitochondria cannot use PUFAs for energy production anywhere near the way that it can use monounsaturated fats and saturated fats. So think of PUFAs as cell death. Now, one important caveat here is that I'm talking about adulterated omega-6 fats. Dr. Pompa said yesterday that this omega-6 fats, quality omega-6 fats, are the key to fixing the membrane. I'm referring to processed omega-6 fats. There's a big difference. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. There's some time and place for quality omega-6 fats, but most of the stuff you see out there is going to be adulterated. And here is the list of the ones we want to avoid. So you might want to take a screenshot. Most of you probably know this, but canola, corn, soybean, cottonseed, safflower, peanut, sunflower, grapeseed, fish oil, and rice bran oil. What is this? R number 1. Remove the source. This is an R number 1 right here. Remove the source. Replace them with monounsaturated fats and saturated fats. Olive oil, avocado oil, butter, duck fat, lard, coconut oil, beef tallow. We have a lot of it here. Credit to Tammy for having those healthy fats for you. Yeah, good job. What is this? R number 2, regenerating the inner and outer membrane. So remove the source by removing the bad fats and replace them with good fats. If you've ever been to dinner with any of us, Pompa, Marilee, what do we always do when the waiter comes? We're allergic, exactly. They ask, what do you like to order? First we say, what do you cook your food in? And it's going to be soybean or even olive oil that's cut. So you got to ask them. So we just say, the whole table is allergic. Because they pay attention to you when you say that versus a preference. And they're going to be great about it. They're going to go talk to the chef and find butter or olive oil or something else. But good tip for you, when you go to a restaurant, we're allergic. Yes. To the bad fats, yeah. I'm actually creating, I don't think you know this, Dr. Pompa, but I'm actually creating a PDF download that you could print out and then bring to the restaurant that shows you what you're allergic to. Oh, you did that?
You're giving away.
Come on. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to just use yours then. So stay tuned for that. That's awesome because it makes it easy, right? And people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and if people don't have that voice or they're uncomfortable or they are with a group that they'll feel judged.
Exactly.
Right? They can just hand them and say, hey, take this to the chef.
Or just bring Marilee's dinner and she'll take care of it for you.
Bring Marilee Pompa, yeah.
I love that. I can't wait to hear about that. So anyways, we want to replace them, right? And that's going to be R number 2. And then another important thing for keto, if you take your patients and get them fat adapted to get them into ketosis, we really want to support the liver, especially in the beginning. As you learned a little bit yesterday and you know of, the liver is the soccer mom organ, as Dr. Don Klum calls it, because it does everything for us. One of the roles of the liver is to create bile. Bile is used as a detergent to break down fat and also for detoxification. Caitlin talked about that. So when we increase fats on keto, here's what happens. It's actually the number one thing I see why people struggle on ketosis and have these digestive issues. They have a sluggish liver. And they eat more fat, they can't break down the fat, all of a sudden they have digestive issues and they say, keto didn't work for me. But it was really because the liver has been beat up through toxins and medications and carbohydrates, etc. So we want to support the liver, and here's the way that I support it with my clients and students. Bitters. Bitters for the liver. So ginger, root, and tea, dandelion greens, artichokes are great for building bile, and it also has fiber. Organic coffee, lemons and limes. I always tell my students to just sprinkle lemons and limes on their meat to help break it down better. Radishes, radicchio, cranberries. The cool thing about basil, thyme, and rosemary is that you could just smell them and it'll stimulate those stomach enzymes and bile. Cilantro and parsley, and then apple cider vinegar is a powerhouse because not only does it help stimulate bile, it also helps with glucose and postprandial glucose. So and there's more out there, but those were my favorite. Additional ways to support the liver: coffee enemas, castor oil packs, Caitlin's favorite, my favorite too. PC pushes, which is phosphatidylcholine, and that's actually a healthy omega-6 fat. Bile salts and vitamin C from organ meats, either supplementation or actually eating organ meat. How many of you eat organ meat, like without the supplements? You animals. Yeah, you animals, wow. Another thing is electrolyte dumping, and this is something that I kind of call electrolyte dumping, but here's what happens. When somebody goes from eating a standard American diet, which is 300 grams per day of carbs, a lot, and they lower it under 50 grams to get into ketosis, they're going to lose a lot of water weight, which is good because they're going to feel lighter and look lighter. But then the kidneys have this diuresis process, which it releases a lot of electrolytes. And this is the number one cause for what people call the keto flu. It's because they lose so many electrolytes and then they feel sick, like they have the flu. So what's the solution? I created something called the Kamp cocktail. And you want to have your patients drink this at least the first 7 days as they make the transition into ketosis. But it's water, apple cider vinegar, cream of tartar for the potassium, and a pinch of sea salt. First thing in the morning, they drink that for the first 7 days to replenish the electrolytes. They could add things like Redmond's Relight and other healthy electrolytes too, but this is an easy thing to make at home. And they shouldn't have to go through any struggles. I've put thousands of people through, I've taken thousands of people from burning sugar to burning fat, and when they follow the protocol, 0 of them have experienced the keto flu or any of these symptoms. So they don't have to struggle to do it. How do you measure ketones? This is important because your patients are going to ask you, are higher ketones better? My urine strips say I'm not in ketosis, so let's kind of unpack this real quick. 3 ways to test ketones because there's 3 ketones in the body. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is found in the blood, acetone, which is expelled in the breath, and acetoacetate, which is in the urine strips. Out of these 3 methods, I don't like the urine strips. And that's because when your cells are efficient at using ketones, the acetoacetate will not spill out in the urine, and it'll just give you a false reading thinking you're not in ketosis, but you might very well be. So I don't like the urine strips. I would not recommend those. A lot of people use them because they're cheap. But maybe the first couple of days they might work. After that, they're not going to give you an accurate measurement. Breath meters have been hit or miss over the years, but this one from Biosense is pretty good if you want to use a breath meter. But my go-to is still Keto Mojo, and I'm going to go over what I consider optimal glucose and fasting numbers, looking at it through Keto Mojo, which is a finger prick. Fasting glucose, 70 to 90. When you're fasted, and your glucose should be 70 to 90, with the exception of a longer fast. With ketones, I found a sweet spot where I've noticed people feel really good, and that's 0.8 to 2.8 millimolars. Now, when you're 0.5, you're in ketosis, but 0.8 to 2.8 is a good sweet spot. But here's what I want everybody to consider and understand. The goal is not to chase ketones. It's to chase results, right? Just like you don't want higher glucose, you don't want higher ketones, but there is a sweet spot, and that's where I see it. Now, this is really cool to do. I recommend doing postprandial glucose, meaning after eating. An hour after eating, if they're doing keto, they should be in the same range of ketones, but their glucose should be under 120 an hour after eating. And you could test that with a continuous glucose monitor or a Keto Mojo or any kind of finger prick. 2 hours after eating, glucose should drop under 100, even better back to baseline, meaning if their glucose was 84 fasted and then they ate, 2 hours after eating, if they see their glucose back down to 84, that would be an awesome thing to see because that means their pancreas is doing a good job at producing insulin to drop the glucose down. Here's what a lot of people think. I'm going to do keto because I'm going to keep my blood sugar a straight line forever, 80, 85. But that's not the goal. You want to actually get those spikes up and down, but have a good response to drop it back down. But what you don't want to see is a glucose go over 140. A lot of research shows if your glucose goes over 140 after eating a meal, you're damaging blood vessels. We know this happens with diabetics, right? So that's something you want to make sure you don't see. But if it goes to 120 and drops back down, that's a perfectly normal response. What to do if you're struggling to get into ketosis? If your patients are struggling to get into ketosis, there's a couple things you can do, 3 things as a matter of fact. Number 1 is going to be C8, MCT oil, caprylic acid. So a tablespoon of C8 could be a great thing. A lot of studies show it enhances ketone production. And then caffeine. Many of you are having coffee right now, so congrats. This study showed it actually helped with raising plasma-free fatty acids. So what you can do is have your patient throw in a tablespoon of C8 MCT oil into coffee in the morning, that should bump up their ketones. But I would say one word of caution. With MCT oil, you might have noticed this, go very low and slow, because if you do too much, it'll send you to the bathroom in a bad way. So maybe 1 teaspoon and kind of work your way up. But that's a good hack for you. The third one is fasting, but Mindy is going to give you a master class on that later. A lot of people think keto is high fat, which is one way to do keto, but you could also do keto with intermittent fasting. So she's going to share all about that later on today. One thing to note is that we love keto, but we follow the diet variation principle, which is rotating your diet, just like ketosis. So I call it keto flexing. Dr. Pompa calls it diet variation. I learned it from him, though. So we don't stay in ketosis forever. Remember, ketosis is a survival mechanism. Great, hormesis, but too much, what happens? Hormetic curve drops. So we practice keto flexing. I don't have enough time to get into the principles, but we get people in and out of ketosis. The goal is metabolic flexibility. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And health over dogma as well, right? So when I speak at keto conferences, right, sometimes they don't like the message because I'm like, yeah, keto's great, but not forever. Yeah, they didn't welcome us back to Low Carb USA because of that, right? So the message is, oh, you're going to go over diet variation? So Olivia's going to cover that. So she'll explain exactly why. But my book has some of the principles in it, and of course, Dr. Pompa wrote the foreword, and you could get the book over at ketoflexbook.com. It's available paperback, Kindle, and on Audible. I narrated the Audible myself. Thank you. Yeah, that was a pain in the butt. Mindy knows all about that. Thank you. Seriously, I respect authors that do that, like you just did it with your book. I always respect you, Peter. You could translate it for him.
We got another 57 slides to get through.
I got time. I got 8 minutes. I'm gonna get through it all. You had faith in me, right? All right. Last part. You did, yeah. We were having dinner in Austin before KetoCon with Mindy and Andrea, and they were making fun of me because I had so many slides, and I had 40 minutes. They're like, there's no way you'll get through it. I got through it, and he owes me a Bitcoin now. But here's the thing. But who did not get through their slides? Who had to rush through it, huh? Anyways, that's our inside joke. Okay. I have 7 minutes and 45 seconds to get through my favorite part. And I know keto is great, macros are great, all that's great, but what I'm about to share with you, I believe 95% of your results will come from this and your patient's results. So I believe 95% of success is mental, 5% strategy. Like Sonia talked about, your lecture was so important. Our patients got to do they got to inner size. People could do keto perfectly, detox perfectly, fast perfectly, but if they're not working on themselves, it's going to be almost impossible to heal. I've learned that for myself, and I've learned that through taking thousands of students through my academy. So I'm going to finish the lecture with this part here, and this touches upon all of the legs in the most important ways possible. It's the mental, emotional stress. If you could master that, I never say stress management, I always say stress masterment. If you can master that, you're going to upgrade every legs of those stools and everything you're doing with your diet, nutrition, fasting, etc. Neville Goddard said, we are only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. How many times have we seen this with our clients and patients? All right? Weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. What does that even mean? You see here, the conscious mind, you're aware of what's going on, but you have the subconscious mind running the show. Weakness of attention is what we deal with in this world, what our patients are dealing with in this world. Mainstream news, which is fear porn, social media, friends, family, and coworkers, and they're gossiping and whatever they're saying about negative comments they're making about you. Billboards, TV commercials, I mean, we are bombarded with distractions and dopamine hits, and it's weakness of attention. It's creating people to go through the motions. And Earl Nightingale said, most people tiptoe their way through life hoping to land safely on death's door. How awful is that? First 24 years of my life, that was me. Many of you could probably relate to that. You probably see that with your clients and patients. So how many of you know that you have about 60,000 thoughts every single day? 60,000. That's all, right? You might have 120,000. That was done by studies done by psychiatrists. 60,000 thoughts per day, they determined. But they also determined that 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts from yesterday. And 85% of them are negative thoughts. What Zig Ziglar said, stinking thinking. And if your thinking is stinking, your dreams are shrinking. That is a fact. Your thoughts create your actions create your results. And if you're thinking negative thoughts, you're going to get negative results. But if you have 60,000 thoughts per day, and those thoughts actually can communicate with your DNA, that is research from Dr. Bruce Lipton, your thoughts are a frequency that penetrate the cell membrane and communicate with your DNA for that DNA to create a protein. This is epigenetics with your thoughts. If it's a negative thought, that protein created from your DNA is inflammatory. If it's a loving, abundant, a grateful thought, it's an anti-inflammatory protein. This means if we have 60,000 thoughts per day, we have 60,000 opportunities to put our bodies in a healing state. And it's free. And it's incredible. But the problem is that most people are not aware of those thoughts. So how many of you, raise your hand if you talk to yourself throughout the day? Okay. Most of you raised your hands, but those who did not raise your hand, you're thinking, do I talk to myself? I think I talk to myself. I'm not sure if I talk to myself. Maybe a little. We all talk to ourselves throughout the day, but mental activity is not the same thing as conscious thoughts and being aware of your thoughts. So I'm going to give you an example of how a lot of people are having thoughts, but they're the same thoughts. They're not original thoughts. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise here. There's a word that you see there on the screen, silk. And what I'm going to do is we're going to say that word, silk, 5 times. We're going to say silk, 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 5 times together out loud. I'm going to ask you a question real quick after that, and you're going to answer that question out loud right away. So on the count of 3, we'll say silk 5 times in a row. 1, 2, 3. Silk, 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 silk. What do cows drink? Milk. Who said milk? Raise your hand. They drink water, right? Silly example to show you that we have mental activity, but they're not conscious thoughts, right? But if we could become aware of those thoughts, I'm telling you, it's been a game changer for myself. That's why George Bernard Shaw said 2% of the population think, 3% of the population think they think, and 95% of the population would rather die than think. I already mentioned this, your thoughts communicate with your cells. That's Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. My mentor, Bob Proctor, who passed away this year, this man, I've listened to his work every day for 7 years. I haven't missed one single day where I listened to an audio, read some of his books, and he passed away this year. He saved my life when I was depressed and suicidal and helped me become aware of my thoughts. But he said, thoughts become things. If you could see it in your mind, you could hold it in your hands. Right? It's so important. There's also this, we're going to get into some woo-woo stuff in my last 2 minutes here. Yay for woo-woo. I think that was Mindy. How many of you read this book or heard of it? Yeah, this is cool. So Dr. Emoto, he would write a word, a message, and put that message next to a body of water. And he would look at the water through magnetic resonance analysis technology and high-speed photographs and see how that word would change or if it changed the chemical structure. So here's what he found. When he wrote the word love and gratitude, the chemical structure of that water turned into that beautiful crystal. You disgust me turned into that disgusting crystal. Eternal, peace, evil. Thank you. Now, how does this relate to us? Well, Paul mentioned yesterday, he gave you those percentages of what the human body is made of. It's about 70% water. So your thoughts, be impeccable with your language, right? The words you're speaking to yourself, to others. That's why I always say you are the most influential person you'll speak to today. Last thing is, how many of you know about vitamin G? This is something all of our patients should take every single day. Dr. Joe Dispenza did brain scans and saw 1,200 chemical reactions take place instantaneously when they took this supplement called vitamin G. Serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, GABA. Put the body in an anti-inflammatory state, which is the practice of gratitude. Vitamin G will change your life and your patients' lives. What you appreciate appreciates. It's a universal law. When you buy a red car, what happens? You see red cars everywhere. It's the reticular activating system in the brain, the RAS. That's the science of it. So you focus on gratitude, you get more things to be grateful for. You focus on things you're bothering you, you get more problems, right? That's the same thing, how it works. One day, you're going to wake up, there's not going to be any more time to do the things you wanted to do. Day 0, day 1, what Peter was saying, I always say, let's turn one day, inspire our patients to turn that one day into day 1. Today. That's my social media. I want to firstly say, I've got so much vitamin G for you all. I love and appreciate you all. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
He calls me the GOAT. I'm going to call him the GOPT. The greatest of present time. Have a seat, GOPT.
I hit it right on the dial, too, at the time.
It's amazing. How does he do it? How many slides? 130?
130 something. I rehearsed this like 3 times before. That's how. Yeah.
Who does that? Great. The greatness
Thank
does
you.
that, right? He is.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we watched Ben come into this program, no money, no following, no nothing. I'm in, and I'm just putting myself around him and you all. And you said it correctly. You know,
Yeah.
you had no way of really figuring it out or doing it, but you
Yeah.
did it. And
Yeah.
look at you now, man.
That's
Holy
crazy.
cow.
It's
You know,
amazing.
success.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's like if we could all just implant that into us, it's like, I mean, our success is just our level of thinking. He ended there, and it's
Yeah.
so true, man. It's like, I mean, that's where most of your questions should be for this guy, right? It's like, I mean, if you knew his whole story, you know, it's like his mindset. Bob Proctor, man, doing that every day. That's how he did it. See, he puts himself around a level of thinking to take his thinking from here to here. Olivia and I were discussing it on this on the way down. I said, Olivia, it's like, it's amazing to me. If everyone in that room doesn't just plug in to that mindset, man, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
hard for me because I've followed one principle in my life. If I want to be here, I just put myself around people doing that. That's it. I tell my kids that, don't I? Have a nice your whole life. I said, success is really easy. You can't do it alone. You just put yourself around people who are doing more and people that you want to be like. You know, and that's what you did, man. So I applaud that 100%. I get
so
choked up thinking about it because I've watched what you've been through. So
I wouldn't have
okay.
been able to do it without you all and the whole Platinum family, honestly.
Yeah.
I wake up every day, I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
And you're right, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with the team. And that's
Yeah.
what I feel like I'm doing with you guys.
You know, oils, man. I mean, it's like, we could open up questions there because here's one of the irritating things for me, and I'm sure for you and many of us. I go to dinner with people in our space, like big names, bigger than mine, and I watch them. I watch them eat vegetable oil, canola oil, without even thinking of it.
Yeah.
I oftentimes watch them drink city water right from the glass.
Same.
Yeah, okay. Like, what does that do to you when you see it? I could tell you what it does to me.
It confuses me, honestly.
That's what it does me.
Yeah. I want to have
Great answer,
I want to get into a conversation with them, but I also want to be respectful, right? So it's like, if somebody shows up on my podcast with Apple AirPods, same thing. It's like, do I bring that up? Should they take off the AirPods? It's like, it confuses me.
Yeah, it is. It's confusing. You know, one of the things we call this seminar Live It to Lead It is you can only take someone from here to here, maybe, if you're not doing it, right? If you truly understood how bad these oils are, you too would become allergic, you know, but you have to live it
You're
to
right,
lead
yeah.
it. If you have a desire to take people here, you have to be there, right? Now, it's not even true. If you want to take people here, you have to be here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you kind of answered it. we could talk about fats and oils, but I think the most important thing is mindset, you
Yeah.
know, that I would want to learn from you if I were them. So what should they start doing right now?
Protect your morning time and your bedtime. That's when your subconscious mind is most impressionable. So it could be as easy as a 5-minute routine first thing in the morning and right before bed. Feed your subconscious mind the future that you want to manifest.
And why morning at night?
Because that's when the subconscious mind is more impressionable. You have different waves, brain waves going on. So you're more likely to create a change during those times. And if you think about the average person, they wake up, what do? They check their phone, they check their social media. I used to do it all the time. But if you had a notepad next to your bed or your patient and you just wrote down 10 things you're grateful for.
So I love the 5-minute thing because I think everyone in the room can give it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe many people couldn't give it 20 or a half hour. So in that 5 minutes, tell them what they need to do.
So I've learned from Tony Robbins. How many of you like Tony Robbins? Yeah, he's amazing. I do this every morning, 3 moments in your life that you're grateful for, and you spend a minute on each moment. So for one moment, you're there for 60 seconds. How did it feel? How did it sound? What did it look like? It could be a small thing, a big thing, and that's 3 minutes right there. And then the other 2 minutes, I would write down your goals. Start feeding that beast, all the things you want to accomplish, and write it in present tense. So 3 minutes of gratitude, 1 minute focused on one memory, and then 2 minutes of just writing down your goals in present tense. 5 minute right there.
Yeah. And at night?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. And at night, you could choose 3 things that happened during the day that you were grateful
that's what
for.
I-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, if you just commit to that, you watch what happens.
Yep.
Right? There's something that just changes in your subconscious. That's why you're doing it in the morning and night. That brings you from here to here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, I want to open it up for some questions from you all. That's part of this. Those are my questions. So hands up. Yeah.
Kate?
Kate.
I was really shocked to see rice bran oil on the no list. Can you elaborate?
Rice bran oil. Why is that?
Yeah, so rice bran is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, so it's unstable as well. It's probably not as bad as something like canola and soybean in terms of the inflammatory response from it, but it's still an unstable fat. And Chipotle uses rice bran oil, restaurants like that. You know that, Olivia. So it's just it's an omega-6. It's a very unstable fat.
And by the way, like something like sunflower seed oil, if you look at Andrea's seed oils, right, there's a way to do them right because they're incredible omega-6 fats in them. However, it's the processing of them is a chemical extraction. It's denatured right from the get-go, and that's the problem. So you can do them right. It's just not easy, right? So, by the way, when you get, like, if you open a bottle of Andrea's seed oil, whoa, it smells like
So
sunflower.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like right away that, okay, that's different, right? And when you take it, it's different. So probably the same. It could probably be done right, but, it's typically not. So.
Yeah, and peanut oil is kind of in the middle. I've asked Dr. Kate Shanahan about that. She said if it's unrefined organic, it could be totally fine.
Yeah,
but most
exactly.
places it's refined, so it
Yeah.
depends on how they process it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Oh. Okay. Well, good, but go ahead, ma'am. Yeah.
It's that same thing on borage oil. It's that same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It can be done right.
I go to the first ingredient in their olive oil is borage oil,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's in our supplements.
Yeah, but borage oil is a great oil and it can be done right.
Yeah.
Yep. Same thing. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Safflower too is in that category.
Yeah, safflower's in that category too.
Yeah.
When you said that the bad seed oils stay for 2 to 5 years in the cell membrane, does the ketosis undo that process, or even as you're getting healthier and regenerating the cell membrane, is it still take 2 to 5 years to get them out, or does that process expedite with the removal, the putting back in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you think about, and you know this more than anybody, but the solution to pollution is dilution, right? So when toxins enter your body, including seed oils, they go into your body fat, so it creates bigger adipocytes, larger body fat. When you do keto and intermittent fasting, you start burning body fat. You could get rid of them faster, but if you get rid of them, bless you, too fast, it could actually create a detox reaction. So that's why like rapid weight loss is not a good idea, especially with people with a lot of seed oils. So to answer your question, yes, it can be done faster than that, but you don't want to really accelerate the process too much.
If you look at our multi-therapeutic approach that y'all are going to learn in the certification. What we're doing is we're detoxing cells, right? We're doing that process. But the fasting is a big part of that answer. Because autophagy, and I believe this is a big part about how we're really dealing with these cells that are DNA that are producing spike proteins continually, driving autoimmune. Look, innate intelligence, no man on this planet is smart enough to deal with this problem that we've created in the last 3 years. Innate intelligence is. How do we harness innate intelligence? Fasting strategies. Fasting knows they know what cells have too many bad omega-6s, what membranes are not functioning, what DNA is bad. Only your innate intelligence knows. So then how do you harness it? You fast. But we know, and you'll learn this, you don't just fast, right? I'm going to teach a little more on this. Fasting is a great stress. You have to, as professionals, learn how to use this incredible hormetic stress properly, and thereby let intelligence change those cells. Gets rid of them, and with a stem cell, it creates another one. That's the answer.
We got an online question.
Yeah.
What about...
Where's Mindy? She should be... what happened? Mindy.
Mama, mycelia, whatever it is.
Mama. Peter says it different every time.
Mama M. Can someone ask, it says, about cod liver oil?
Yeah, okay. Either one of us can answer this. Yeah, okay. Look, both of us have interviewed Brian Peskin out of MIT, right? And Jordan's, I said that story, I was with Jordan's scientist, and he was lecturing me on why you shouldn't take fish oils, right? And how it stops your body's own production and all these problems. And I'm like, yeah. I let him go. And then I was like, well, you're preaching to the choir on that. Not a fish oil fan. It's oxidized. Typically, even if it's good going into your body literally has to use its own antioxidant supplies to deal with it because it's that fragile. Now, of course, if you eat cod liver fish, it's amazing. There's protection. It's perfect, right? So not a fan of any fish oil. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, according to the NIH, the average adult brain requires 7.2 milligrams of EPA and DHA each day. One capsule of a standard fish oil is 1,000 milligrams.
Yeah.
That's a super physiological overdose, right?
It is. It's absolutely an overdose. And here's the question I've been getting lately. But I'm running all these omega-6 tests on my people, right? And they're taking Pureform or Vista or whatever it is. And it's saying that they're loaded up with arachidonic acid and too much. Have you been getting that question? Yeah. See, the testing now, the result is based on a skewed number, based on really bad science. So when these people are running these omega tests, they're literally, the numbers are very deceiving because the science is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, there is this test that you can run. It comes, Johns Hopkins was originally the one that was doing it with really a different number of what is acceptable. And so, anyways, that's another, you'll learn that.
Yeah.
We have one more live stream, palm oil.
Oh, well, the issue with palm oil is what it does to the environment. They destroy a lot of animal life and trees to create palm oil. So if you find a sustainably sourced one that's organic and you don't use it for cooking, that's fine. But if you're using a regular palm oil, it's going to contribute to the destruction of a lot of trees and animal life. Yeah.
Well, Ben, you are a wealth of knowledge, and it's like, my conversation with Olivia on the way down, it's like, it's amazing to me that someone wouldn't plug into this community in some way. I mean, maybe not platinum, but maybe even the certification. You're at every one of these seminars, you're going to be in our family, and you are putting yourself around the level of thinking that I hope you see. We all need to make a difference and change the world. Be a 3%er. Yeah. Make the choice. Stand in the short line. When my dad joined, standing in the short line. When my dad, this is my dad though, he went down to sign up for, everyone was getting drafted, so him and his friends went down ahead of time to enlist in the military. And everyone they were in the Air Force, they were in this, and my dad saw the shortest line. There was nobody over at the Marine booth. Why? Because they die. So my dad chose the shortest line and became a Marine. But I'm here. He survived. Yeah, wow. And it was hairy, scary. But choose the short line. Literally 3%ers. A choice. Success is a choice. It's a decision, isn't it?
A committed decision.
Yeah, and you can't worry about the fears. You just have to step in. So
Amen.
you be around a guy like that, forget about it, man.
Amen.
I'm glad I'm around you, man. You're the greatest, the go up, the greatest of present time right there. Give him a big round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Unbelievable. Awesome.